It'll be a great night filled with winners and Dylan Dennis's. Now, most of you have come up to me already, and you've said, Chael, you're the greatest undefeated heavyweight UFC champion of all time. You say, you're the greatest commentator I've ever seen. You have the #1 podcast. What are you doing at the award show? Well, quite frankly, I'm here because I love this sport. I love the fighters, the coach. I love the referees. I love the ring card girls, and I want to make sure they get the recognition that they deserve. And because me hosting would mean nobody watching, and by the way, I want you all to see them come on stage and thank me, so you're welcome in advance. It's the holiday season, and this is my gift to you. Now this is the award show where you, the fans, pick the winners, and thankfully Adelaide Bird only gets 1 vote. You know what I'm talking about. I can't wait to find out who the male fighter of the year is. Kamaru Usman had an incredible season. He hit George Masvidal so hard, Joe Biden almost remembered where he was. Then he gets a win over Colby Covington. That's no easy task. Colby's got cardio, guys. You should have seen how fast he was running in and out of the Capitol building on January 6th. And I'm from Oregon. People ask me about Colby all the time. I tell them, Colby Covington is what happens when you only hug your child once. Unlike Brendan Schaub, and that's what happens when you never hug him at all. But enough about the guys. Let's talk about the female fighter of the year. Kayla Harrison is here, and boy, she had a year and a half. Now, Dana White recently said he's not interested in signing Kayla Harrison, which can only mean she'll be fighting for the title by March. By the way, I got to give a shout out to Dana. He overcame COVID in 5 days. Now, the boss really beat COVID in 2 days, but Dan Murgliata was a little late to stop the match. I personally did not watch the Triller event, and not because I'm a hater, just because I didn't want to see Frank Mir get TKO'd while being in a triangle, and triangles give me flashbacks. But back to the awards. There were so many epic battles this year, and we're going to...
What is going on?
Yeah. How about Chael Sonnen? We're at the press conference. This is 4 days before the fight. He's working for, I think, ESPN for the Mayweather stuff. I'm working for Showtime. He comes by, he goes, "Yo, Max Kellerman didn't take you on that $100,000 bet. He'll win win a round or more, right?" I went, "No." He goes, "I'll take it." I went, "Chael, you take this bet, you're gonna fucking pay me." He goes, "I swear to God, I will pay you." Shakes my hand. He goes, if McGregor wins 1 round or more, you give me $100,000. He goes, "Yeah, he's not gonna touch him. He's not gonna win a round." Cool, man. Shake his hand. Then after the fight, he was literally like, he just texted me yesterday morning. He goes, "Hey, bro, I'll be in LA. I'll drop the cash off." I'm like, "You don't have to pay me, man. It's not that serious."
What?
He was dead serious.
I'll drop the cash off. You said no to $100,000?
Yeah,
you think he would have said no to you?
I do.
He would have made you pay.
I do. This
You're
is
out
type
of your
of
fucking mind.
Nope. I'm telling you,
What?
this type of dude Chael is. Remember when Chael and Nate fought?
Yeah.
Nate fell on hard times. Chael sent without
Nate Marquardt, by the way.
Nate Marquardt, yeah.
Sent him, Nate Diaz?
Yeah, sent him a check in the mail. Was like, "Hey, I know you're going through hard times. Here's some money." So when he helped my friend, like, he's always had a free pass with me. Always.
Wow, that's
always.
very nice of you.
Yeah.
Very nice of you.
I'm also rich.
Whoa.
Just kidding. Not Rogan rich.
Whoa.
Not Scroogey.
Then we get the scores from the incompetent judges of the Nevada State Athletic Commission. 1 round for Conor McGregor. Of the 9 completed rounds, 1 round went to Conor. Floyd Mayweather would not agree with that. Floyd Mayweather Sr., Roger Mayweather, Ellerby, nobody. Floyd's kids. Take the most biased people you could think of. That's what I'm trying to do right now. They would not agree with that. Because it did not go a decision, there will be no light shined on those 3 judges. The unbelievable incompetence of those 3 people getting ready to rob Conor McGregor. Because it did not go to a decision, nothing will happen. Had it gone to a decision, the Nevada State Athletic Commission would still do nothing. You just hear reports of it all over the place. Because it wasn't factored in, it'll be like it never happened. There will be no talking to any of those judges. There will be no written explanation needed. There will be no verbal explanation needed in the back. "Hey, how'd you have those rounds?" Sure looked to me. CompuBox. Everybody else watching. Floyd himself sure looked to me like Conor won 4 of the first 6 without argument. Nothing will happen other than they will use the fact that they were assigned to the mega fight in history to get themselves to the next big main event world title fight. It's corrupt. It's dirty. It's why boxing is dying. It's why boxing is failing. And nothing will happen. That's frustrating. That really is frustrating. You took a guy like Conor that went out there, did what he needed to do, and they were setting him up. They were setting him up from Jump Street. Walked away with rounds 1, 2, and 3. Walked away, not even a debate. None. They gave him 1 round. I had a bet, $100,000 with Brendan Schaub. He ran his mouth and he put it out there. And the bet was that Conor would win rounds. And I said, no, he won't. He will not win rounds. Not if you're pluralizing it. That means 2 or more, Brendan wins. But I knew he won it. Just logic said he won. It's a great bet. If you're a handicapper, you got to take that action. Got a guy that's an amateur versus a guy that's never lost. He's not going to win rounds. Even money. My 100 versus his 100. I could not get that at the windows. It was 6-1. So if you want to bet, you got to take Brendan's bet. So I took it. So I watched that fight. I was not armed with the fact that the 3 corrupt judges gave Conor 1 round. So the next morning, I took Brendan his money. Brendan refused the money. He said, actually, Chael, you're wrong. I owe you. And I just stood there and looked at him. He said, I owe you. He goes, dude, you haven't seen the judges' cards, have you? And I said, no. So he brings it up. John Morgan had posted it at MMA Junkie. And he brings it up and he shows me. Well, Conor had only won a round, not rounds, plural. So I won. I didn't feel right taking Brendan's money because that was crooked. That's not what happened, regardless of the incompetence. And I realize, I mean, betting's a real hard line in Vegas. You're right. Like it or don't like it, you get that ticket, it's printed. I mean, private bets are the same way. You make a handshake and you don't discuss the in-between. You got to take it straightforward or you're not an honorable man. But I couldn't take his money either because it's not what happened. And I just told him that. We just shook hands and walked away, laughed it off, and that was it. I came home and my wife said, where's your $100,000? I said, honey, I watched that fight. Those crooked judges, Brendan and I are just going to have to push this to the next one. I'm filling you in on that because Chris Camozzi was texting me the whole time, wondering who and then was feeling for him. He's like, man, you lost that money to Brendan. And then he looked at the cards himself and he's like, no, wait a minute. You won that money from Brendan. So that's really neither here nor there. Amongst 2 gentlemen, Brendan and I called it a draw, but it was an amazing performance by Conor. And, Floyd defended himself too. None of this is even to put Floyd down. Floyd turned his back 4 times. That's illegal in boxing. You cannot turn your back. And I thought that referee could have got a little bit more involved. That is not a fight that I wish to pick. I like how the referee did it. I understand the rules of boxing. He should have been more involved. There was even some rabbit punches there by Conor, totally illegal. He let him go. It turned into a street fight. I liked it. And I think that was one of Floyd's biggest problems. I sat next to Teddy Atlas. Teddy Atlas couldn't believe what he was seeing. He had it the same way I did. 4 of the first 6 went to Conor. And you could argue 6 of the first 6, but for sure 4 of the first 6. And Teddy said that. He said Floyd's never been in there with a street fighter. Teddy was confident the entire time Floyd was going to come back. He could see the fatigue setting in with Conor. He could see that Floyd was fresh because he hadn't done a goddamn thing. But he was surprised at what he was seeing. He was surprised at round after round after round going to some kid from Ireland who decided to throw some gloves on after training for 8 months. He was surprised. CompuBox numbers came out. Put this in perspective for you guys if you haven't heard this yet. Manny Pacquiao fought all 12 rounds with Floyd, landed exactly 100 punches. Conor didn't even go 10 full rounds with Floyd, landed 111 punches. Okay, the guy can box. And the talk about what's next for Conor, I personally believe it's going to be in MMA. I personally believe it's going to be the end of December, a trilogy with Nate Diaz. Yes, I have inside information on that. I'm not breaking news. Not breaking news, but I do have inside information, and that's what I think it's going to be. Some people say, yeah, but the money's in boxing. Well, that's not true. I mean, you got to be careful with that. The biggest purses ever have come from boxing. That is a factually, historically correct statement. But to say more money comes in boxing isn't true because those fights come along once every 2 years. And boxing will be lucky if it can pull it off once every 2 years with Floyd stepping aside. Now, if one of these guys, and I'm talking about either Canelo or Triple G, if one of those guys can grab the torch and run with it, great. Maybe we'll keep seeing these big mega fights, but then they're going to need opponents and some things are just going to have to line up. They're just going to have to line up right. So the biggest money has come in boxing. That is true, but not the most money. MMA between Bellator and the UFC, they're paying out millions of dollars and they're doing it every single Saturday, not just once every couple of years. So I think that Conor's going to return. If you want to speculate about him in boxing, him versus Floyd, if this gets built up, if you bring in the corruption of the judges, if you bring up the way that it was judged, if you bring in the way that it was refereed, that Floyd was allowed to turn his back 4 times, what he is not allowed to do, you could get some talk going here. You could get some dialogue going for a rematch for this. And the only thing more embellished than Floyd Mayweather's personal wealth is Floyd Mayweather's pay-per-view numbers. Neither is true. Both are great. Neither is true. My point being, this fight was a cash grab. Mr. Billionaire, Mr. Money Floyd, he needed the money. He's going to need the money again. And if the right kind of hype, the right kind of speculation was to come out, and it's got to come out this week. It can't, if they miss this week, they're going to miss the whole thing. You can't light a fire on something that went away. It's a little fire right now, little bit. They got to throw some gas on it. We'll see if they do. But you could see that fight again. You could see that fight again, but we're going to know in the next week here. We're halfway through it already, and I'm not seeing enough buzz going on. I'm seeing more buzz coming in from Paulie's side, which I'm personally down with. I would personally watch Paulie and Conor, but I would rather watch Conor and Nate. I would rather watch Conor and what he does, which is MMA. But his boxing skills cannot be called into question anymore. Absolutely not. His courage can't be. Nothing about Conor can be called into question. There is no fakeness there. There's a showman, sure, but he means everything that he says, and he's got the skills to back it up. And rhetorically, I don't have the words to give you as big of a compliment as I feel is owed to Conor. I want to give him the biggest compliment I can. I'm trying. I just don't know what to say. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing that a guy who had never done it went a half of an hour with the best to have ever done it and still never fell down. Still never fell down. Referee stepped in and said, you're not defending yourself enough. Okay, fair enough. That's part of the sport. We can stop and go home here. But it's been a half an hour. He landed 111 shots. He took over 111 shots and stayed standing. Fatigue set in. It should have set in. It was absolutely remarkable. I'll give you guys something else. This was driving me nuts all week. I really like to operate in the realms of reality. That's important to me when you're dealing with a true sport. If we're talking about WWE, let's believe whatever we want to believe. Okay? That's a movie. That's for fun. But this is supposed to be a real sport. So they bring out a fake belt that's worth $344 and claim that it's $1 million, and people eat that up. I mean, it was an ugly belt on top of that. It's a weightlifting belt, for God's sakes, with a little plate put in the middle of it. 2 kilograms of solid 14-karat gold, 138 diamonds. And then he just left it in the lobby of the MGM Grand, and nobody even tried to steal it. Everybody knew it was fake. I had shared with you some frustrations that I had with Joe Rogan outing Colby Covington's approach to marketing. Brendan Schaub responded to what I said about Joe Rogan. And just to recap for you, what I had said about Joe was that he is an insider who is revealing secrets of the business to outsiders, which is the audience. To which Brendan responded the following.
Chael was so upset. It's like Rogan got on there and went, you know what? And as who was on there with him, Anik, he's like, you know what? I actually talked to Kobe before the fight, and he told me what he plans to do is go in there double leg right away. And if a double leg doesn't go well, he's looking for a head snatch. After the head snatch, he says the guillotine's there, and every time RDA steps to his left, he's going to throw a right high kick. He didn't give away his goddamn game plan. So it's like Chael's so upset that Rogan's pulled the wool over everyone's eyes, and here he is. You know, he's been doing this magic trick. No, I think Chael, the audience is not that naive. No. We all know this, and he's almost, what Kobe's doing is he's going the Floyd Mayweather route where we're tuning in to see him lose. Mm-hmm. So it's a little dramatic. I get it. I agree. Rogan doesn't need to do that. I also don't think it's that big of a deal. I don't think that affected pay-per-view at all.
All right, so my response to the response. Let's take this thing apart. I mean, first off, I wasn't looking for a back and forth on this. I didn't think this was going to turn into something, and I still don't believe that it necessarily is. I don't think anybody's going to war here, but should we, I will be standing my ground. Now, let's break down a few things that Brendan said there right out of the gate. Okay, he closes by saying, I don't think that affected pay-per-view at all. Well, Brendan, excuse me. I won't pick on you for that one. I'm going to assume that you misspoke. He said it during the pay-per-view. So, yes, I think we can fully concede to the fact it did not affect pay-per-view buys. To speak to the beginning of your premise, you were coming at it from a standpoint that I said that Joe was revealing some kind of insider information. You were speaking about the fight itself, and you used the example that it was his game plan. If he steps right and then he steps left and then there's this guillotine there. We're coming at this from two different approaches. I'm speaking to you about the business, and you're responding about the sport. So right off the cusp, I don't feel that you're understanding what my message is. So I'm going to attempt to say it yet again. I am not talking about the sport, and so many people want to defer back to the fact that this is a sport. First and foremost, this is a business that presents to the audience a sport. First and foremost. I think that everybody understands that, but I'm going to lay that out anyway. I will concede to the point that, yes, I don't need to be as pissed off as I was. It was the straw that broke the camel's back. It has happened time and time again. And for me to be irritated that somebody from inside the metal apron is outing another guy from inside the metal apron is a point that I stand by. It is an industry secret. Sure it is. And Brennan, I got to tell you, to the message that you said, I don't think Joe's, you said pulling the wool over everybody's eyes. I think you mean revealing the wool, removing the wool from everybody's eyes, because we all know what Colby is doing. That's where that you and I've got a disagreement here. That's where you are flat wrong. And so many people in businesses, not just this one, when they live in the business, as Brendan does, as I do, as Joe does, you get so close to the trees you can't see the forest. To make a statement that we all know what Colby is out there doing, that's because you're an insider. And you don't step back to 10,000 square feet and look at this objectively. People make this mistake all the time, but it was the mistake in your rebuttal to my comment. Scott Coker and Dana White, the leaders of this business, will happily admit to you anytime that the hardcore fans who you speak to, Brendan, and who I speak to, who you and I make our living off of, the hardcore fans who you identified as everybody knows, represents 15% of this marketplace. There is another 85% out there that tune in, that come to the shows, that drive the actual business. They are far more important than the 15% business-wise. That doesn't mean we don't serve the 15%. Of course we do. We love our base. We want that 15 to become 18, to become 21, to become 30. Sure we do. But when you look at this thing objectively, no, they don't. You are wrong, Brendan. You and I understand it because we spend our lives in the gym and in front of these microphones and in front of these guys, because we never miss a card, because we know when somebody is seeking attention. We know when somebody has true skills. We know when those two worlds come together. We know what we're looking at. But 85% do not. And it is wrong that somebody from within inside that metaled off apron discusses what another guy within that metaled off apron is doing to the audience. It is none of their goddamn business, and you're wrong about that. You're talking about a business from a promotional standpoint that is based on evoking emotions. Stone Cold and The Rock were masters of evoking emotions. But when they sat down in that room and closed the door and figured out how they were going to do that when their music hit those speakers and they walked into the paying audience, there is a reason nobody put a camera on that meeting and revealed it to the audience, because it's none of their business. And any business, in any single promotional business, if somebody is doing a marketing campaign or building a commercial, nobody within that business gets to then go reveal to the audience, well, yeah, we were doing that because we were trying to get your money, and, we kind of wanted you to go in this direction, and here's what we wanted you to feel and we wanted you to think. It doesn't happen. They would be removed immediately. And that is my point. And, yeah, I didn't need to be as upset I was about that. I will concede that to you, but it was a straw that broke the camel's back. How about you just tell the truth? Because that's where Joe's coming from anyway. He's going, I don't want to, I came along in the 90s, back when it was about the punches and kicks, and, we fast-forwarded, and we're in the entertainment era, but nobody's going to control me. If I see something, I'm not going to fall for it, I'm not going to look like I fell for it. Okay, great. That's not a helpful attitude, but that is your attitude. Okay, great. Then how about you just tell the truth? Colby Covington has to stay in a private hotel. He is the only athlete that stays in that hotel. He has to be separated. As a matter of fact, the last time he stayed in a fellow fighter hotel, he ended up in a street dust-up with heavyweight Fabricio Verdum that ended up in some kind of a court case, possibly an arrest. I'd have to go back and look. How about you just tell the truth about that? How about you tell the truth about the fact that Colby Covington is the only guy on the UFC roster that has to have his own private security with him at all times? Because so many people hate him and have publicly threatened his harm. Why don't you just tell that? That's true. That's all true. The other side of that is he doesn't have to stay at another hotel, and he doesn't need any private security, and nobody's walking up to the world champion trying to start something in the streets. Doesn't need any of that. But a promoter realized there's a fantastic story there, and it's worth me shelling out the money, and it's worth my travel department booking him in a separate hotel, and we'll send his own van to go pick him up for his media appearances. While the promoter wants to look as though they did that for a guy's safety, the promoter actually did that because he knows there's a monetizable storyline there. And because the promoter is in the world of presenting something to you that is competitive and real, as opposed to, say, the WWE, which is scripted, the promoter cannot come to you and tell you to go out and see this. So instead, he's going to do it, hope that you have the intelligence that God gave geese, and that you will just do it on your own, since he also, at the end of the night, hands you a paycheck. So if you're so married to the idea that you're not going to be part of the entertainment era, and you came along in the 90s when there was only 5 shows a year and the laws of supply and demand were in your favor, even though you're confronted with the evidence that it's the entertainment area that has driven this industry and your specific business to a $4.2 billion valuation, even if you want to be so naive and unhelpful and ignorant and blind to those facts, if that's what you want to do, and you're just going to tell the truth, and you're only going to say what's out, and you're not going to promote anything, then why don't you say the truth, which is Colby Covington has to stay in his own hotel. Colby Covington was attacked on the streets of Australia by a UFC heavyweight. Colby Covington is surrounded by personal security. Why don't you tell those facts? They are real, and they are compelling, and they are far more compelling to your audience than, oh, he's just doing this to try to get attention and to get your pay-per-view money. Which is my only point. And the example that I also gave in that piece, and I stand by the example, it is the exact same thing as me going to Joe Rogan's act on a Saturday night in Beverly Hills, getting on an airplane and following him on a Tuesday night to Chicago, where he's going to perform that same act and blurting out the punchline before it happens. It would ruin the show. And it doesn't endear me to the audience. And it doesn't make me a man of integrity to reveal that to the audience. The audience doesn't actually want in on that. That's the part of it that it takes a level of intelligence to understand.